So, like I mentioned in the other video today on the other channel, the Roland PMA5, that is quite a mysterious beast. There's a lot of funky things. It is basically like GarageBand from the 90s, and I need to go home and sit and like go through the manual. I'm already a little bit of the way through, but it's set up in a very strange way. But like I said in that video, I'm touching on this video about this thing, the Synth Fox Touchbay, and basically it comes as two parts. The Eurorack module, which basically takes in 4 inputs and 4 outputs, and then there's this kind of touch interface that's basically connects it with your fingers, and you're able to bounce between all of the different inputs and outputs. And what I thought would be pretty sweet to do with it first would be basically to hook it up to some brawling cures. Hopefully that won't go over the voltage, because I haven't got much Eurorack at the minute. So I think I'm gonna hook a couple of brawling cures in there, maybe a noise and stuff, and then send the outputs, 2 to dry left and right, 1 to a reverb, and then the other one to a delay. And we're just gonna have a quick play and see what the heck happens. This isn't really what I know and stuff. Maybe the ground is isolated and it's just the signals on here, and then your fingers are passing it through. Maybe potentially the same as what you could do if you send a signal through a body of water. Yeah, there's a video in that. I'm sure that will be sometime soon. But yeah, I'll hook this up and we'll have a little play. It's pretty cool. It's even got a back plate. It's pretty snazzy made. Anyway, let's have a go. So right now I'm in front of my rather dodgy addiction of bidding on test equipment on eBay. And so what I have in front of me is 4 of the Brawl & Cure test oscillators on a very low setting, because you've got to be very careful, because on the maximum settings they can actually output around 110 volts, and you don't really want to plug that straight into your modular synth. There are actually modifications for the Brawl & Cures, but I've never looked into it because I've actually turned them on max, plugged into mixers, and they've never exploded. But I don't want to explode this fantastical Synth Fox, because when I see Heimbach next, I'm going to pass it over to him for him to play on, because I think it'll be pretty cool. So right now what I have is basically 4 of the oscillators going in to the inputs of this Synth Fox thing, and then I have the 4 outputs. 2 of them are plugged into left and right. If you listen, when you listen to this is left, this is right, and then I've got 1 plugged into delay, oh no, reverb, and I've got 1 plugged into delay. And the way it works is basically you touch your fingers, like it works best. I've found I've got really dry fingers. It works best if I breathe on them a bit. So as it's laid out, the inputs, which are labeled A to D, laid out semi-randomly, and then the outputs 1 to 4 are laid out in a similar kind of pseudo-random fashion. So it means that if you run your fingers across it, the inputs and the outputs will all get mangled together. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try and play some sort of stuff. Basically, you just send the inputs to different outputs, and you can have them all just randomly playing together. So it's like a really quite an expressionate, interesting synth module. It probably works best with Eurorack. As you can hear, I am running the Brawl & Cures reasonably loud, and I think they're bleeding a little bit out. So I reckon Eurorack may suit this more, but I don't have enough Eurorack modules in the vicinity right this second. So let's just have a go. So yeah, if you start running your fingers across it, you get some pretty interesting effects that kind of run through. And if you have it panned, imagine if you've got 4 outputs coming to 4 speakers around and performing. Pretty funky. So as you can see, you can get some pretty gnarly results. I mean, it doesn't need to sound reasonably, you know, avant-garde. I'm sure if you put some more tuneful things in, panned drums all over the place, or if you had 4 separate outputs that were actually in a surround sound space, it could be quite an interesting thing. And I think it's a pretty cool control interface that Synth Fox has made here. It depends how dry your fingers are. If your fingers are really dry like mine, you can get a little bit of noise, but all you need to do is make them a little bit moisturized or something, and then it's like silent, and it feels so smooth to bounce between it. It's quite a strange experience, to be honest. I'd be interested to see what Heimbach thinks of these things. And like I said, there's information on these in the description below. I need to get back and figure out how to use that PMA5 Roland thing. It's going to be an interesting night because it's awfully complicated, but I thought it was worth just shooting a really quick video on this thing to kind of show you what it's about. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I'll be back with some more videos. There are even more frequent vlogs and stuff about my breadboarding and building and stuff like that. I post about 3 a week now on Patreon, so if you want even more kind of videos on electronics and stuff that go sometimes into a bit more depth, quite a lot more depth and stuff like that, then go and check it out on the Patreon. The next live stream is going to be right at the start of February, stuff like that. So yeah, but yeah, I've been Look Mum No Computer, and this is the more serious part. See you later.